I saw this tweet. It was a video from James Lankford, who is senator from Oklahoma, Republican, and he basically said, folks can go to X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and see this. He said, "Look, I talked to a very prominent pundit on the Republican side, and he goes, if you push for any immigration bill this year, we're going to come after you." So basically, and this is obvious, but they want to run on this. And this is where, to me, two things can be true at the same time. I'm all about the devil's in the details. It's all about the nuance. These two things can be true. Joe Biden has been absolutely terrible on the border for the last 3 years. That can be true. And also, the Republicans should probably pass this bill, and it would improve the border for the next, well, a long time, but obviously right now, and that they're doing it for political reasons because Donald Trump wants to run on Biden being so terrible at immigration. Both of those things can be true.
You're absolutely right, and they are true, and there's a lot going on here. Look, the president does have powers, some executive authorities, to limit migration into the country, and Biden has not exercised a lot of those authorities in the same way Trump did. But remember, people were still coming across the border and showing up at the border during the presidency of Donald Trump in pretty large numbers until COVID hit. Once COVID hit, obviously all around the world people had a hard time traveling. We had an expedited authority called Title 42 that allowed us to just expel people as soon as they cross during COVID. That since the courts since have eliminated that protection. So it's not like there was no illegal immigration under Trump. It was much better. And the reason there wasn't zero illegal immigration is because it's not just about the president's executive authorities. It's about the law. And the law on immigration hasn't changed in a major way since the 1980s. I think it was 86. Ronald Reagan signed an immigration bill. We're going on 40 years. We haven't been able to come together. And this bill that is going to go, we're recording this on Wednesday. It's going to go down to defeat by the time you hear this in the Senate. And it's probably, never going to be resuscitated. This isn't perfect. It isn't the way I would write it up. But is it better than the status quo? Absolutely. I mean, this bill would end catch and release for adults. It would reform the asylum system so that everyone would have their asylum claim processed within 6 months. Right now, the biggest problem we have at the border is people show up, they claim asylum, which people have the right to do, and then they're given a court date to appear in 5, 6, 7 years, and they go into the interior of the country, and who knows if they ever show up? Probably not. That's insane. That is an insane system. This bill would make it so that adults would be in detention and supervised up until their asylum hearing. We know most asylum cases people lose. I think it's upwards of 85%. So they would then immediately be deported. There would be no take a bus to New York City and have a court date in 6 years. That would not happen under this bill. They There would be an automatic shutdown when we hit an average of 5,000 people a day. We've been over that for months. The border would be shut down immediately if this bill passed. It would raise the standard for asylum. There would be money to combat fentanyl, money for cities to deal with the migrants who are here right now. There are so many good things about this bill, which is why you saw the Border Patrol Union, who, if you follow them on social media, they hate Biden. They endorsed Trump in 2020. I'm sure they'll endorse him again. They can't stand the policies of the Biden administration when it comes to the border. Their union endorsed this bill, saying it's not perfect, but it's way better than the status quo. And we know a lot of Republicans secretly would support this bill. James Lankford, who negotiated, who you mentioned, is not some moderate. He's not a liberal. He is a pretty hardcore conservative from Oklahoma. Republicans would have supported this bill in large enough numbers that it would have passed both the House and Senate were it not for Donald Trump coming out so strongly against this bill because he wants this for an election year issue. And it's really sad that our politics are like this, but that, I guess I shouldn't be surprised right now. Every time we have a chance on immigration, it goes away because of politics. There are factions on both sides who just want to use the issue and they don't want to get a result unless they get everything they want, which haven't we seen now? That's never going to happen. It isn't going to happen in our system. Most likely with immigration, you're going to get what you want. I mean, I said this on our previous show. Think about this for Republicans. Like one of two things is going to happen. Either Biden is going to win again in which case he will have no leverage. You will have no leverage over him to negotiate a deal. You have leverage right now because he knows this is killing him politically. If he wins re-election, you will have no leverage and you're not going to get a deal this good, not even close. And if Trump wins, you will still need 60 votes in the Senate. Even if the Republicans take back the Senate, which they probably will if Trump wins, they're not going to get 6, 7, 8 Democrats to vote for a Trump immigration bill. So this is your chance to get a deal that is pretty good for Republicans. You don't have to give up, which I support, a path to citizenship for the dreamers or people that have been here a long time. That's not in this bill. There's none of that. You get a lot of the things you've wanted without having to give up a lot. You're not going to get a deal this good. But, this is the Republican Party under Trump. And as a former Republican, I hate to see this, but this is what they are right now. And it reminds me, are you a Succession fan?
Oh yes. Oh
It,
yes.
it reminds me of the line from this past season, the final season of Succession, where Kendall Roy was it was the last, spoiler alert, he died in the show. It was the last conversation he had with his kids. And he said, "I love you, but you're not serious people." And
Hmm.
that is the Republicans right now. And take out the "I love you" part, but they are not serious people by and large. There are some who are and who want a result. But the current iteration of the Republican Party, it's not about getting a result. It's not about changing the law. It's about how can we win this election? And this immigration bill lays that out plain as day. If there ever, was a doubt.
So, okay, two questions for you on that because you know a lot more about this than I do. Well, the first one is the political ramifications of this not passing. I just wonder how much it matters. Because look, if it did pass, Joe Biden can go out there and say, "Hey, I passed legislation." I don't know how much it hurts Donald Trump that Joe Biden and the Democrats can now run on. Hey, we wanted to fix the border, and Donald Trump didn't allow us to do that. Even though that's true, this gets back to we're on 5 shows. I've said the same thing basically the whole time. The fact that it took so long to even have this conversation, Biden has already lost on the border. So that was going to be my second question. Why did it take so long? Why did it take 9 months or whatever it is, 10 months before the election for this bill to even get there? I mean, it seems like I know when Biden took over, you're right in the heart of COVID and all that, and the borders back open, but still, look, I think I'm pretty reasonable in saying, oh, okay, well, why did it take so long for you to take this seriously? When, I mean, Republicans ran on this going back, I mean, many, many elections ago, but certainly in the midterms, they were talking about immigration, immigration, immigration. Now, they didn't win, they didn't have that red wave based on that, like a lot of people thought. But why did it take Biden and the Democrats so long to have a bill like this?
Well, I think it's politics. I mean, look, Biden and the Democrats, they wanted when this administration came into office, they wanted the kind of immigration deals that have been proposed in the past and that failed under George W. Bush, under Barack Obama, and they got close, but they couldn't get over the hump. And those deals generally were border security in exchange for legal status for the people that have been here a long time and the dreamers who were brought here as children, and some more visas for people. Because one of the backdrops to all this immigration fight that we don't even talk about much, but is really important, is look, I'm totally against mass illegal immigration. I think it's a disaster for our country, and I have a lot of criticisms with Biden for that. But immigration in general, particularly legal immigration, we need more of that. The birth rate of people in the United States continues to go down. We're having fewer and fewer kids. We in order to, fill the jobs we need in the future, we're going to need more immigrants. And so immigration should be the deal, right? That should be the deal. More legal immigration, take care of the people here a long time. But in exchange for that, we lock the border down and we change our asylum laws so that people who are claiming asylum can't just hang out in the country, which is part of what this bill would have done. That should be the deal. But the problem is we never get there. And so I think the Biden administration wanted to make that deal. It wasn't going to happen. But then the situation got so bad. And Governor Abbott, to his credit, I think it was a great move in Texas, started sending migrants to other parts of the country. And so then the pressure built in other cities and states outside of Texas, Arizona, California, New Mexico, and the big city mayors in New York and Chicago, they started putting pressure on as well. Like, hey, we got to do something here. And so I think the political pressure got to the Biden administration and Democrats to the point where, again, they were willing to give something that Democrats have never been willing to give in the past, which is changes in security that make it harder for people to get into the country without amnesty for people already here. That's a deal Republicans couldn't have even dreamed about, 3 years ago. There's a reason Trump didn't make that deal. It's because he couldn't make that deal. That deal is there now, and they said no thanks, and they're going to say no thanks. And that is, it puts us in a place where it makes you think: Are we ever going to be able to get a result on this? Are we ever going to be able to change these laws to something that is a sane immigration system?
And I also think we should take care of the dreamers. It's not their fault. But I think you get into a tough spot, though, when, look, if you did come here illegally, but let's say you've been here a long time, a long, long time, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years. Now, by the letter of the law, should you deport those people? By the letter of the law, yes. I just wonder with some of these people that have been here so long, I mean, can there be a system where you pay some type of fee or fine slash community service? I don't know. And if somebody wants to have the argument that they should deport all those people, I don't even know how I feel about this, but I do think there are people that have been here a long, long time. And if they're good citizens, I'm not even saying that they should be able to vote, but if they're not committing crimes and they're productive members of society and have a job and they're contributing, I think to me, those are the people that it's a tough question on. But then it's kind of like, well, where do you kind of stop that? Is it 5 years? I mean, somebody's been here for 20 years, but somebody just came here 2 weeks ago. Do you look at them differently? I would, but I don't know. I'm trying to kind of find the middle here.
I mean, and the reality of the situation is those people are not deported unless they commit, some type of like heinous crime. That's true under Republican or Democratic presidents. We only have so many resources, and there are millions and millions of people in this country illegally. We are not deporting, nor probably will we ever deport the people that have been here for a very long time. And I think if you look at polling, and I just think we're a country of immigrants. We have sympathy for immigrants. And I don't think we're ever going to, nor should we deport people that have been here for 10 or 20 or 30 years, who have made a living, who have contributed, through payroll taxes to Social Security and Medicare, and have children, and oftentimes who are US citizens. And I think that, again, that's the deal. That's the bargain. But I understand Republicans saying, I'm not going to give you that unless we also get border security so that we make sure that the next wave of people can't get into this country in large numbers. I think that makes perfect sense. And that's a deal that has been negotiated back and forth again over the years. It's been on the table here or there. And both parties are to blame. I want to be clear on that. But when you have those deals, and this is the latest example of the deal that's going to be killed here recently, it's Republicans who kill it. And it's because there's a base of the Republican Party that either doesn't want a deal, or they only want a deal if it's everything they want. And again, we're going on 40 years now. It should be clear to everybody by now that this is one of those issues where you are never going to get everything you want. It's not going to happen. President Trump isn't, if he's reelected, it isn't going to all of a sudden come in and be able to do something he couldn't do during his first 2 years with a Republican Congress and pass an immigration bill and get Democratic votes. It's not going to happen, especially when you consider the kind of Democrats who would be more likely to vote for that, or might vote for it, aren't going to be in the Senate. Joe Manchin's retiring. Kirsten Sinema, an independent, she's likely not running. There are other Democrats in red states who, if Trump wins, they're probably going to lose. They won't be there. The Democrats who are left if Trump wins are not the kind of Democrats that are ever going to vote for Trump's version of immigration reform. And that, look, politics is, you got to take what you can get when you can get it. Because the opportunity is not going to be there all the time. And if you have a chance to make things better, even if it's not perfect, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? That is what should happen. But it's not going to happen, and we all know why. Everybody understands that. Now, in terms of the politics, you're right. I think the best case scenario for Biden would be this passes, and then he can say, "I'm trying. I've agreed to compromise that Democrats don't usually agree to. And if it had an effect, which I think it would, in dramatically reducing the numbers, he could say, look, things are much better. That's not going to happen. So now his fallback option is I tried. I made concessions. I was willing to sign this bill. Donald Trump literally said, "Don't do this because of politics." I mean, it's not like we're reading the tea leaves here. I mean, he came out and said, "Why would you help Biden?" I mean, there's been Republican members of Congress that have said that. They've said the quiet part out loud. They've literally said, "Why would we do this to try to help Joe Biden to make the situation better?" So now, if you're Biden, you can argue and say, "Look, they're saying what we all know, which is they are blocking this for political reasons. They think it might help me." But that goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show. In order to effectively execute that argument, you have to have the energy and the ability to make that argument in interviews, in campaign speeches. You have to have that. And does Joe Biden now have that? He won't even go on CBS for the Super Bowl. That would be a perfect opportunity because they'd ask him about immigration. It's the biggest issue in politics this week. That would be one of the first questions he got. And he would have a Super Bowl pregame audience where he could say, look, it's bad. I admit it's bad. I'm trying. I support this bill. The Border Patrol Union supported this bill. It would, by all accounts, make our asylum process way better. And Donald Trump and the House Republicans are blocking this. He could make that in front of a huge audience, and he won't do it.
And this gets back to our sports analogy, where look, I think they should pass this. I think it makes sense. I think the country will improve. I think the border will improve if they pass this. However, as I'm thinking about it strategically, or as George W. Bush called it, strategery, I think it's the right political move. I hate to say that, but look, we have to talk about these things in two different on two different avenues. What's right, what you should do, but then also what's smart politically. And if I'm a Republican, I think even though it's wrong, I agree with Trump that you can't give this to Biden. Look, Biden's old, but inflation is going down. The economy is getting better. Unemployment numbers, job growth, obviously record high stock market. This is the one that the Republicans really need. And if they can't do the thing, we've seen this in past years, where you start to see the images of the migrant caravans and all that. I mean, they love running on immigration. So I hate to say it, but I think it's the right strategic move for the Republicans to not pass this bill, even though it's the wrong thing for the country.
I agree if you're looking only at does it make your chances of winning the 2024 election better? If that is your only question, which for Donald Trump it is, let's be honest, then you're right. I think there's no doubt about that because this bill could have the effect. Again, we are over the number that would require an automatic shutdown. So if this bill were to pass, there would be a shutdown. It would last a little while. The numbers would go way down. The asylum process would be reformed. There would be a lot of positives to this bill on the ground. And again, would it mean that doesn't give Biden a pass for his management of the border for the first 3 years? It's not like Trump still wouldn't be able to hit him for that. Trump would still win that issue, but it would have the effect of, to some degree, I think, neutralizing it. So you're right. From political standpoint, it's a no brainer. But I mean, isn't this the thing that we hate about our politics? Is when our politicians put something that might be good for the country and might make things better behind their own political interest. Isn't that one of the things that we decry? We're like, oh, these politicians. And we should, because at the end of the day, the job is to make things better. It's not about just trying to win the next election. It's about when you have a moment and an opportunity, can you try to solve problems? And that's the issue with both of our political parties right now, to be fair. They are controlled to a large extent by their extremes, by their bases, by the donors, the small donors in a lot of cases who will give them the money month after month, who aren't representative of the general public. And they are oftentimes unwilling to say to those people, you're wrong. We have to try to make things better when we have an opportunity. And that is what we hate about our politics. And although it happens in both parties, it is worse on the Republican side right now. It is worse. Most of the time when there are compromises to be had, the Democrats are willing to do it at the end of the day, and the Republicans aren't. Not in every case. And that's why I say, and you see this with the problems they have getting anything done in the House, the Republicans aren't serious people. And that is why Biden, that's one of the biggest things Biden and the Democrats have going for them is people recognize that. And that's one of the reasons there wasn't a red wave in 2022 is because people didn't love Biden in 2022. Like his numbers are a little worse now, but they weren't good then. He was very unpopular then, and historically presidents get crushed in their first midterm. But the reason it didn't happen was because people looked at the alternative and they said, nah, there's too much crazy. There's too much chaos there. And that is still, by and large, the Republican Party in 2024. And it's why, despite his 37% approval rating, Biden has a coin flip chance, to win re-election.